We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio American Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. We're joined by Liberty Nation's senior political analyst and longtime host of this here radio show, Mr. Tim Donner. Earlier in the show, we've been running the gamut on the Super Tuesday results, the Biden-Trump records. Now let's devote a little bit of time to the departed candidates of Super Tuesday, and that was most notably Miss Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, former UN ambassador, and she quit, and she did not, in her recusal speech, I guess you might call it, endorse Donald Trump directly. She congratulated him and said that it was up to him to earn the trust of voters, but she's not backing him as of the time of recording. She's not offered her full-throated endorsement. What do you think that means?
Well, I think it's a bit of a come hither type of move, which is that if she gives away her endorsement now, she loses any leverage that she might have with Trump. She has won a few delegates. She does represent the non-Trump wing of the party. She also, even though she is a true conservative, she is not a rhino, which some people have said she is, but she is more of a traditional George W. Bush-style conservative. You hold out your endorsement because you're hoping that Donald Trump will maybe make some concessions, maybe ask her to be VP, even though she said she's not interested, and he said he won't take her. You know, this is politics.
Sorry,
Things
Tim,
can change
if I
in
could
5 minutes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tim. I'm sure I know you've seen it, and I'm sure many of our readers, watchers, and viewers and listeners have. But there's a British show called Yes, Prime Minister, and Yes, Minister. It's a prequel, and in that it's about the bureaucracy versus the politicians, and it's wonderful. It's good, clean humor, but it 30 years down the line, it still rings as true as a bell.
It's because it's human nature and it's
human
politics, and that doesn't change.
But there's one key part in it where I believe that one of the politicians said, "No, I'm absolutely not running." And then off to the side, the two of them look at each other and go, "Oh my God, he's running!" When they say they're not doing, and that seems to me that that could also be the Haley situation. She'd be willing to accept a position. I don't think vice president, though. I think they've both made a bit of a stamp down on that. But she could be the queen of foreign affairs, couldn't she?
She could. I mean, she says a UN ambassador under her belt. I suppose she could be Secretary of State, though she doesn't have extensive foreign policy experience outside of her 2 years as UN ambassador. Look, I think the future is up to her. There's two ways this could go. If Trump wins, okay, then she's going to have to kind of, if she runs again, which I don't see why she wouldn't. I mean, she stays in this long to build a base. She's raised money. She can put a lot of it aside for another run. But I think that she needs to, basically play ball with Trump in just the right way while maintaining her independence. And I think if Trump wins, she's going to have to adjust a little bit her message in 2028. But if Trump loses, then I think the whole deck is cleared and we start all over in terms of whether the Republican Party is going to go back to a more traditional form of conservatism or not. And I think that is the critical factor in Nikki Haley's future. But, she's the first Republican woman ever to win a primary. And she outlasted 7 impressive men. So I think, and you know what, Mark, the other thing is she's extremely popular with women. And I mean, that gives her a real leg up for 2028 and probably gives Donald Trump pause about whether he ought to try to convince her to get on the ticket. Be a little hard, though, now that she's criticized him so much she'll just be asked constantly during the campaign, but you said he was too old, but you said he
Yeah.
drove the deficit up too much, but he, this sort of thing.
Yeah, speak at haste, repent in leisure. Somebody we're not really talking about is Ron DeSantis, who, and I think you and I both agree on this. If Donald Trump had not been in this race, this would have been Ron DeSantis's to lose. He could have, as long as he didn't screw everything up so too badly. He had the support of the let's call it the MAGA base, but he also has a lot of support amongst the more traditional Republicans, as you say, like the G.W. Bush style Republicans. They like him too because he's got governor experience and has done a very, very impressive job, not just of running Florida, but of taking people along with him on his coattails and getting people into office. So I find it funny that we're not really talking about Ron DeSantis, but we're all talking about Nikki Haley. Now, do you think that's because, as you pointed out, she did outlast 7 other candidates?
Well, I think that Ron DeSantis, he would have had a competitive race with Nikki Haley, and I think he probably would have won if it was the two of them. Then, of course, there was Ramaswamy, Vivek Ramaswamy, who made a good impression, and a few leftover votes for Chris Christie and the like. But
who? Sorry,
the former governor of New Jersey.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
I know it's easy to forget. He didn't win a primary, but a Democrat that nobody had ever heard of, who'd never even visited American Samoa, was able to beat Joe Biden.
Jason Palmer. Jason Palmer.
Jason Palmer. He's got stories to tell for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, imagine that.
The only man to beat Joe Biden in the Democratic Party primary. I mean, this time round, of course, but lots of people have beaten Joe Biden in previous presidential primaries. It's almost Joe Biden's thing, right?
Well, I mean, I think he's proven why his campaign, fell flat on its face in 1988 and in 2008. The guy was a terrible candidate. In 2020, he was fortunate he had to just show up, not say anything, do anything, or go anywhere, and let Trump defeat himself. And he lucked into it. And yet, look, I'll make one other point that I think is key to make here. In terms of pride goeth before the fall, Joe Biden could have called it quits and passed the baton after the midterms of 2022 when Democrats exceeded expectations. And in 2020, of course, he had knocked Donald Trump out of the White House. He could have retired as a heroic figure in the Democratic Party if he had done the right thing and fulfilled his implicit promise that he was going to be merely a transitional figure. But his hubris, his power went to his head, and now his legacy stands to be as, let's put it this way, one that makes Jimmy Carter look like George Washington.
I love that. There's another meme. We are building memes here. Those of you at home listening in, if you're good at making memes, send them along to libertynation.com. We'll be back after this short break where we're going to talk battleground states, my favorite topic. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.